I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old on Old. And this week, we're going to be looking at a classic film adaptation of one of the great American novels. I'm talking about To Kill a Mockingbird. So, if you guys are new to the series, what I do every single week is I break down a classic film I've never seen before. I talk about its historical context as to why I think it's a classic and why it sort of persisted today. And I also look at it, my thoughts on the movie, looking at it from a 2018 viewpoint, because this is the very first time seeing if these classics should be held classics in my mind, and if I still enjoy them, and sort of maybe some of the parts that are dated and some parts that really hold up and are true today. I'm having a lot of fun with the series. We're nearing the end here, but I did want to tackle out a couple big ones that I've missed, and To Kill a Mockingbird is a big one, I think, for sure, because so many people have seen it. The plot about the movie, you most likely do know, but if you don't know, it's about a sort of woman reliving the years through narration of events that affected her childhood, sort of this 2 to 3 year span of period that really sort of affected her childhood in this one age, as she's sort of retelling it in that sense. And jumping into the historical context, like I said, this is known for the sort of book and film pairing. You see, at least in the States and in Canada, this is read in every English class, this book, and then subsequently the movie, and in such a way that I think they're intrinsically tied together. They're two different mediums. They both do it very well, in my opinion. Now, I haven't read the book multiple times. I was taught to it in English class, the sort of symbolism of it, but I did enjoy the book. I did enjoy the movie, and I think a lot of people feel this way. A lot of times when you read books in English class or whatnot, most of the times you don't like it, but this was kind of always seen as a book that people really enjoyed, and why it sort of stayed in the curriculum for all these years. And the film, if you don't know, came out in 1962. The book actually came out in 1960, which is why I actually sort of correlate them in a lot of ways, because the movie, like, for example, The Grapes of Wrath, it comes quickly after the book becomes a big success, and the Hollywood's into it. They get Gregory Peck, to one of the biggest actors at the time, to star in the movie. It was really a big ordeal, and then it became a commercial and critical success. They lost money at the box office, and then actually won 3 Oscars for Best Black and White Production Design, Best Writing, and Best Lead Actor for Gregory Peck. And I think that as I sort of looked more into the history, and you realize that these themes of the movie are sort of very universal, even in a place like States, where something like racism is very deeply rooted within that culture. It's sort of hard to separate that. And actually, on that note, I found that the film actually has an odd historical context, in the sense that it's like a great novel, a great film does. It adapts and sort of changes its interpretation and sort of its viewpoint based on how the world is at the time. For example, the film, when it came out in 1960, was about the author, well, the book, and then sort of the film as well, about the author Harper Lee, and she's looking back at sort of an autobiographical-esque, not really that autobiographical, but inspired by her childhood in certain ways. Certain characters like Dale, I believe, is Truman Capote. It's looking back at sort of how racism in the 30s was hushed away and sort of not brought up to light, and sort of the African Americans at the time sort of accepted it, at least the way they portray it, and sort of the African American families were very few and sort of predominantly white communities, and sort of hidden away. But now, at the time of release, 1962, particularly the film, you see this as a commercial success. You also have to think, all right, this is the civil rights movement is starting to build up here in the States. Guys like Martin Luther King Jr., where this sort of viewpoint is not being held anymore, where the African Americans aren't just staying in the corner or staying at the back of the bus. They're really coming out, and they're on your news, and you see them, and they're in sort of the forefront. So I think the success of this movie, while not directly lumped into it, has something to do with that sort of even just mainstreaming that. And I think Oscar movies did that, sort of played into that, where if you talked about race or you talked about social issues current and prevalent to the time, the same way what's going on today, I believe. I think that it gives you more sort of points in that sense, and that's why I think the movie did well at the Oscars, but it also did well commercially, so you can't just knock it off as an adult drama, because it connected with the audiences, and people really did understand the sort of movement that was going on at the time through a different lens. But now, even today, we don't take a look at it from a civil rights perspective. We take it back from almost a nostalgic perspective, as a time capsule, as a place where things once were, not necessarily the way they should be, but a place they once were. And in a lot of sense, that really strengthens the nostalgia of the looking back on it that Harper Lee implies into the book, and then in the narration of the film. So, like I said, it's a great film where it just is able to adapt through different genres and not through different genres, but adapt through different eras and through different decades, and have different meanings and associate with different things. But that's what something like a great classic storytelling does. It's classic because it can relate to so many different people in so many different ways. And I think this is a great film that way, because it's very well paired with the book. But that being said, it's very much its own medium in the film. And that being said, let's move over into my thoughts. So really, if just the way I was going into this, I had read the book, but I had never seen it in English class like so many of my friends did. It was one of those movies that they had seen, but I hadn't, which is why I kind of want to do that. And I think I came at it from a very unique perspective, a very pure perspective, because not only had I sort of read the book but not seen the film, I think I came to it like a lot of people in 1962, knowing nothing about it. Like I said, an English teacher didn't have to explain the symbolism to me. I had to sort of pick it up myself, which, a lot of times for a popular film like this, it's obvious to sort of, get it right away and get sort of spoon-fed to you. But, I don't think I did this time, and I sort of enjoyed it a lot more that way. I did enjoy most of it, I'd say. There are some problematic parts, but really what I actually latched onto was the coming-of-age drama aspects. I remember I read the book a long time ago, so I always remember it being much more of the courtroom drama, and even the film was celebrated for their courtroom drama scenes. That was kind of this, but then you go into it, and there were really lengthy sequences of the coming of age, of the stories between Scout and Jem, which is probably what I enjoyed maybe most. Definitely up there, where the relationship that Scout and Jem had, because they totally nailed that older brother, younger sister dynamic. Jem is sort of teasing her and sort of makes her do stuff and sort of pushes her to her limits, and makes fun of her when she's in the dress and whatnot. But also, I think that when, for example, when he starts to brag brag about her in front of Dale when they first meet Dale, about how she can already read, there's that protective aspect to it. When he breaks up the fight, so he's very proud of his sister, he loves his sister, but that doesn't mean he can't tease her, and totally nails it. And I have to give the shout to the child actors, Mary Badham and Jim Alford, and those are Jem and Scott, and it's really hard to find a great child performance like that. And when you're putting the film on their backs of their shoulders, they don't want to feel sort of annoying, and they never did feel annoying in that way. I found them to be very genuine, and I just wanted to go on their adventures. And it's not like a movie like Stand By Me, which has a bunch of different people and then could do more broader stereotypes. It's only these two, and I think they sort of encapsulate a lot of people, and they I really just thought genuine. But what I really actually enjoy maybe most about the movie is the relationship between Atticus and his children. All this stuff almost before the court case really made me fall in love with Atticus. You never really see a great sort of single dad in that sense, and I think he is a character that has sort of sustained in film history and in book history. He's an iconic character, and Gregory Peck plays him expertly. You have to realize he has to play the strict parent, but also the caring parent. He sort of works and then sort of gives them their time, and then once the sort of bell rings, they have to come in. And he just seems to have always the right answer, and he's always so calm. And this film is very much calm. It's a soothing film in the same way something like Lincoln is soothing, where you just put it on and it relaxes you because everything's it's settled. Even the sort of the Boo Radley stuff, which is there, it's not too much of a threat, especially if you've seen the movie. But Gregory Peck, what he does is he's, he feels very much like a Spencer Tracy in the scene, where yes, he's a great leading man, he's been known for that. They could have gone with someone like Henry Fonda, for example, but they didn't. Or Jimmy Stewart, or one of those sort of classic Hollywood stoic leading men, but they didn't, and they went with Gregory Peck. And the best thing about him is that he's not acting in here. It's always a complete transformation. It's almost like as if Gregory Peck is Atticus Finch. I see a movie like Roman Holiday where he sort of has a little more of a swagger, and I love that movie, and he's a great protagonist there as Joe Bradley. But this one is just mind-boggling to me because he's so subtle, and you feel that he's a very calm man, he's a very serious man, but he's a very caring man, and he cares about this case, even being a lawyer, which sort of, in movies you don't see a lot, or even in real life, they don't really care. It's not my opinion as to what I think the guy did. This guy really cares. He's really invested. He's really invested in his kids. He wants the best. He has good intentions for all his things, and that's why I think Atticus has become such a unique and idolized character. I think a large part of that is not necessarily due to the book, but due to Gregory Peck's performance and his relationship between the kids. I think he was just an incredible family man that I really appreciated. Another thing I forgot to mention, just how the film has changed over time. I'd take a look at this from a 2018 viewpoint and actually notice some of the more the feminist sort of aspects into it, and sort of the feminine dynamics of how, Scout, she wants to be a tomboy and she wants to do her thing, just instead of just letting her be, they have to put her in her dress and she has to act a certain way. So although Atticus is sort of particular about that, he does make her do it because, that's the dress code of the school or whatnot. So already in this time, you're looking at the sort of dynamic of the tomboy, which I don't really remember seeing that often. Maybe it was a big thing in the 60s. I don't know, but this was for the first time I was seeing it, that because this girl grew up with her brother and a single dad, she comes a little more guyish because she doesn't have a female influence aside from the maid in that sense, which is, not necessarily directly involved, like a mother figure for example, although she does play sort of a strict, stern role in that sense. But I don't think that's the reason. I think it was just interesting to see that sort of feminine dynamic of they're not allowing her to sort of do her own thing, even though they're great parents. You could say that's a problematic part of the movie. I also would probably say the third act at the very end there, I thought it tied up maybe a little too neatly, a little too nicely. But that's kind of the charm of the movie, is that there's a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel. That even though things don't go as planned, it's still, a charming movie. It's still a movie that ends on a positive note, just enough to give you hope and give you faith for the future and faith for good people. It makes you feel good because there's good people in the world, and Atticus Finch is a great person. Alright, that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure you comment below. Let me know some of your favorite book to novel adaptations. I love to hear them. And until next time, stay tuned.